He served his country, but his own neighborhood turned against him. Before this story begins, if you believe that respect isn't something you give based on skin color, but something earned through character, sacrifice, and truth, then stop right now. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because stories like this, real or inspired by truth, deserve to be heard. This is the Untold Struggles. It was a bright morning in Maple Ridge Estates, a quiet suburban neighborhood where lawns stayed trimmed, mailboxes matched, and smiles masked judgment. On this particular morning, David Harris, a retired Navy veteran, was raising his American flag just as he did every sunrise. 20 years of service, 3 tours overseas. The flag meant something to him. But before he could even step back to admire it, a white SUV rolled to a stop in front of his driveway. The window rolled down. "Mr. Harris," came a sharp voice. "You know that flagpole isn't HOA approved." It was Richard Kavanaugh, president of the Homeowners Association, clipboard in one hand, ego in the other. David sighed. "Morning, Richard. We talked about this. I already submitted the form." Richard smirked. "The board hasn't approved it yet. And until then, it's a violation." David's jaw tightened. "You realize I serve this country, right? This isn't just a decoration." Richard shrugged. "Rules are rules, David. Can't have the place looking unregulated." The pause before that last word stung more than the sentence itself. And from that moment, it began. The letters, the warnings, the constant surveillance. Every small thing David did was non-compliant. But what Richard didn't realize was that David had seen men like him before, in power, in uniform, in boardrooms. And he was not the kind of man to back down. By week 3, the harassment had become routine. The HOA sent 4 violation letters. 1 for leaving his recycling bin visible, 1 for improper exterior lighting, and 1, unbelievably, for having unauthorized visitors. That visitor was his old Navy buddy, Malik, who had stopped by to share a drink on the porch. "You're telling me they fined you for me sitting on your porch?" Malik asked, disbelief in his tone. "Apparently, my company doesn't fit the neighborhood's aesthetic," David muttered, bitterness coating his words. Malik leaned back. "They're targeting you, brother. Straight up. But I know you. You're collecting everything, aren't you?" David smiled faintly. "Every letter, every notice, every recording from the cameras I installed last week." He pointed toward a small security camera perched under the gutter. "Let them try something. This time, it won't just be their word against mine." Still, the quiet cruelty of the HOA grew louder. Neighbors who once waved now averted their eyes. Someone even scrawled, "Not welcome," on his garbage can. And one night, his tires were slashed. If you've ever dealt with quiet racism, the kind hidden behind rules, meetings, or policy, then you know how this feels. Don't let stories like this disappear. Subscribe now, drop a comment, and let the world know we see what's happening. It happened on a Tuesday evening. David was cleaning his yard when he saw Richard's SUV creeping down the street again. The man stopped, got out, and began taking photos of David's house. David approached calmly. "Evening, Richard. You planning to move in? Or just can't get enough of my property?" Richard didn't look up, just documenting ongoing violations. "Violations?" David scoffed. "For what existing?" Richard turned, smirking. "You know, David, maybe this neighborhood just isn't the right fit for you." That sentence, that subtle, venomous tone, David froze. "You mean it's not the right fit for a black veteran who owns his home outright?" Richard's smirk vanished. "Careful with the accusations. Careful with your words," David fired back. They stood toe-to-toe, decades of privilege and pain clashing in silence. Then Richard made his mistake. He grabbed David's wrist. "You're threatening me," he said loudly, for anyone listening. David's eyes went wide. "Get your hand off me." Richard didn't. So David did what instinct and training told him to do. He twisted his arm, broke free, and grabbed Richard by the collar, holding him still, not to harm, but to stop him from escalating. "Don't ever put your hands on me again," David said, his voice low, shaking with restraint. At that moment, neighbors peeked through curtains. Phones came out. Lights flashed. It was over in seconds. But the story that spread the next morning was very different. The next day, two police cars parked in front of David's home. "Mr. Harris, step outside, please," one officer called. David emerged, calm and confused. "What's this about?" "We received a report of assault." He laughed bitterly. "Let me guess, Richard Kavanaugh?" The officer nodded. Malik, who was visiting again, filmed everything as David put his hands behind his back, voluntarily. At the station, the officer reviewing the footage frowned. "This looks like self-defense. He clearly grabbed you first." But the report had already been filed. The neighborhood's witnesses, Greg's friends from the HOA, had already submitted statements. So David spent 48 hours in holding. No charges, just investigative detention. When he came home, his flagpole was gone, and a new sign had been hammered into his lawn. "For sale." Someone had listed his property online, without his consent. That night, David sat at his desk, scrolling through his files. Every letter, every message, every camera recording. And then he found it. A video from 3 nights before the incident. Richard, standing outside with another HOA member, laughing. "We'll make him leave," Richard said. "They always crack eventually." The next morning, David called a civil rights attorney. Within a week, his case went viral. Hashtag veteran profile began trending. And now, for the first time, the HOA had to answer questions they'd long avoided. At the emergency HOA meeting, reporters filled the back row. Richard, sweating under the fluorescent lights, tried to maintain his composure as David sat silently in the front seat, his attorney beside him. The lawyer pressed play. Richard's own voice echoed through the speakers. "We'll make him leave. They always crack eventually." Gasps filled the room. Richard's jaw dropped. David didn't move. "You said this neighborhood wasn't the right fit for me," David said, standing. "Turns out, it's not the right fit for you." He turned and walked out, calm, proud, unbroken. Outside, Malik was waiting. "So what now?" David looked up at his empty flagpole, then smiled faintly. "Now, I'm raising the flag again." As the fabric caught the wind, the camera panned upward, the stars and stripes glowing in the sunset, and the narrator whispered. They tried to silence him. Instead, they exposed themselves. Fade to black. If you believe in standing for truth, hit that like, comment, share, and subscribe. Because silence protects the powerful, but voices like yours, they protect justice. This is the Untold Struggles.